I am sincerely grateful to Father Bryant Cullinane for celebrating this 6 o'clock Mass for me last weekend while I was on the retreat of the Diocese of Raleigh with other priests. But I can tell you honestly, I did miss seeing your smiling faces. Hope you missed me too. Two young boys found a purse in a supermarket parking lot, and they assumed it belonged to the elderly woman who had just got in her car and left. So they picked it up, opened it up, and found her picture on her license, her credit cards, and other assorted things. But they also found one crisp $10 bill in the billfold. So they thought for a second, we can't keep this. We have to bring it back. We have the address. But before they brought it back to her, they went to the store and exchanged the $10 bill for 10 ones and put them back in her purse. Because in case she wanted to give them a reward, she had the money to do that. Dan Miller, in his book, No More Dreaded Mondays, tells a delightful story about a farmer many years ago in a village in India who had the misfortune of owing a large sum of money to the village moneylender. The old moneylender fancied the farmer's beautiful daughter, so he proposed a bargain. He would forgive the farmer's debt if he could marry the farmer's daughter. Both the farmer and his daughter were horrified by the proposal, but the cunning moneylender suggested that they let Providence decide the matter. He told them that he would put a black pebble and a white pebble into an empty money bag. The girl would have to reach in and pick one pebble from the bag. If she picked the black pebble, she would become his wife, and her father's debt would be forgiven. If she picked the white pebble, she need not marry him, and her father's debt would still be forgiven. If she refused to pick a pebble, her father would be thrown into jail until the debt was paid. They were standing, as it were, on a pebble-strewn path in the farmer's field. As they talked, the moneylender bent over to pick up 2 pebbles. The sharp-eyed girl noticed that he had picked up 2 black pebbles and put them both into the bag. Then he asked the girl to pick a pebble. Now imagine that you were the girl standing in the field. What would you have done? If you were to advise her, what would you have told her? Careful analysis would produce 3 possibilities. 1, the girl could refuse to take a pebble, but her father would be thrown into jail. The girl could pick a black pebble and sacrifice herself in order to save her father from debt and jail. Or the girl could pull out both pebbles in the bag, expose the moneylender as a cheat, and likely incite his immediate revenge. Here's what she did. She put her hand into the money bag and drew out a pebble. Without looking at it, she fumbled with it and let it fall from her hand onto the pebble-strewn path, where it immediately became lost among all the other pebbles. "Oh, how clumsy of me," she said. "But never mind. If you look into the bag for the one that is left, you'll be able to tell which pebble I picked." Since the remaining pebble was black, it would have to be assumed that she had picked the white one. And since the moneylender dared not admit his dishonesty, the girl would have changed what seemed to be an impossible situation into an extremely advantageous one. 2 young boys, very crafty, very creative. A young woman with a fate in front of her that she didn't want for her or her father became very creative in a very unfortunate situation. In the gospel today, it seems as if Jesus is praising the dishonesty of what used to be called in the old translation, the wily manager. The manager, for whatever reason, the gospel doesn't tell us, was going to be let go, and he couldn't dig, didn't want to beg. He was afraid that something would happen to him bad. He had to make friends with his boss's creditors. He didn't cheat his boss, though. All he did was erase his commission as manager from both of those creditors' owings to the boss. He was very creative. Now, we could try and look at that parable and try to find 1,000,001 things that we could explain and understand, but a parable only has one thing to get across. And the one thing that Jesus is trying to tell us is that we will go to whatever end we have to in order to make sure we are taken care of in this life. We can be very creative with our time, with our energy, with our money, but the question that's unasked but is begged in this gospel is how creative, how crafty, how ingenious can we be when it comes to securing our place in the afterlife, in the kingdom of heaven, for eternity? How creative can we be? We could actually call this Stewardship Sunday. And you know, stewardship always talks about our time, our talent, and our treasure. Let's talk for a moment about time. I can't tell you how many people on any given week say to me, Father, you know, I just can't find time to pray. My answer to them is, you know, we all have 24 hours. You just have to get creative with your time. You know, where your treasure is, there will your heart be. If you really want to pray, you will find, no, you will make time. In the seminary, 10 years in seminary, there was an horarium of prayer. It started out at 5:30 in chapel, 12 o'clock in chapel, 5 o'clock in chapel, 9 o'clock in chapel. I never had to think about when I was praying with the community. But, once we got into ministry, then we had to become creative because there was no schedule except you have masses, confession, benediction, you got to teach at the school. All these things were piling on your schedule. You had to decide, when am I going to pray? I had to know myself, as you have to know yourself. I'm a morning person, so getting up that much earlier in the morning provides me with the time for prayer. And those of you who know me well, you know that running early in the morning is a perfect time for prayer for me. You know, we try to use our time wisely, but there are times when we don't choose to do something that could have great ramifications for other people. Case in point, last Saturday evening in Staley dorm, on a whiteboard in front of a room that was habited by a black girl and a Jewish girl, there was obviously a party going on, and someone throughout that evening hours of the party drew a swastika, drew a KKK, and some sexually explicit drawing. Those girls woke up at 11 o'clock on Sunday morning last week and found those awful symbols on their door and were absolutely horrified, shocked, hurt beyond measure. My question is, I wonder how many people, students, walked by that dorm room and did nothing, maybe even saw it and walked by. I can't imagine why, if someone saw it, they wouldn't take 5 seconds just to wipe it away and save those 2 girls a great deal of pain. And worse, you know, it's been in the local paper. There's not been a statement made by the university. So the very silence of the university is hurting them just as well. I know the African American community and the Jewish community are taking care of those two girls, but we need to offer our prayers for them, for their support, for their composure, that they can go back to doing their normal routine and forget about this terrible atrocity. Treasure. We all have money. And sometimes, we use it for our greater advantage. When we realize that whatever we have, we really have to thank God for and give back to God in one way or another. Yes, we take care of ourselves and take care of our own, but whatever we have left over has to be used creatively for those who don't have much. I remember my time in Ghana when it came time for the offertory procession. It was an hour. An hour. Not because they were carrying buckets of money up to the front. It's because they gave back to God what they had. And that was eggs, animals, produce. And they brought it up to the front in such great aplomb with dancing and singing a whole hour. They understood what it means to be a responsible steward. Each one of us has been given time. We've been given talent. We've been given treasure. Being responsible stewards is one thing. Being creative stewards is another. I ask you to remember the stories, remember the gospel, and try sometime this week to be creative in giving back to God and to your community something that you have, that you treasure, especially